the watcher in the dark. I've always been someone who enjoys solitude. I live alone in a small, aging house on the edge of a forest in northern Michigan. It's a quiet place, too quiet sometimes, but I liked it that way. I work as a night security analyst, which means I often get home late, usually around 1 or 2 in the morning. That night, I wasn't expecting anything unusual. I was just looking forward to a quiet night, maybe a beer, and an early bed. It was around 2:15 a.m. when I arrived home. The rain had started, drumming against the tin roof in steady cold beats. I could smell the wet earth mixing with the faint, musty scent of my old house as I unlocked the door. My keys clicked, the lock groaning like it hadn't been used in weeks. I shrugged off my wet jacket and headed toward the kitchen to grab a beer from the fridge. Then I noticed something. At first, I thought it was my imagination, the flicker of shadows through the blinds of the front window. But as I looked closer, I saw him, a figure tall and thin, standing perfectly still in the rain. He wore a dark hoodie, though the hood obscured most of his face. I froze. My heart leapt into my throat. The first thought that came to mind was that he was just a passerby, maybe someone lost or drunk. But then I realized he wasn't moving at all. He was just standing there. I whispered, "Who's there?" My voice sounded absurdly loud against the drum of the rain. No answer. He didn't flinch. His gaze, or whatever I thought was a gaze, felt like it pierced straight through the glass into my chest. I could feel the blood draining from my face. I stepped back, my foot brushing against the wet rug, and the sound echoed too loudly in the otherwise quiet house. I thought maybe I should call the police, but my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't unlock my phone. I took a deep breath and approached the living room slowly, trying to make myself look casual, hoping he would leave. That's when I heard it, a scratching sound coming from inside the house. Not the floorboards or my walls, from the corner of the living room. My stomach dropped. My front door, which I was sure I had locked, was now slightly ajar. My pulse was thundering in my ears, my hands slick with sweat. I thought about running out the back door, but then I froze. He wasn't outside anymore. Not exactly. He was in the corner of the living room, blending into the shadows. I could feel his presence. Watching. Waiting. I whispered, "Get out. Leave." But no sound came except my own ragged breathing. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, that my brain was playing tricks on me after hours of staring at screens and working alone. But I knew better. I could feel it in my bones, the weight of someone else in the house. Then he moved, not a full step, just the slightest shift, and the shadows seemed to twist with him. The air felt heavier, colder, like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees in an instant. My skin crawled, goosebumps rising across my arms. I bolted, out the back, barefoot, into the muddy yard, rain soaking through my clothes, slipping over the slick ground. My chest burned, my legs ached, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I could still feel him inside, somewhere. I ran until I reached the main road, finally able to stop. I called the police from my phone, hands trembling so badly I could barely dial. When they arrived, they searched the house thoroughly. Nothing. No footprints, no signs of entry. No man, just the door, slightly ajar. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind, made me jump. Around 3:45 a.m., I heard it again. A faint tap, tap against the window in the living room. Not on the outside. Inside, my heart stopped. I didn't look. I didn't move. I just waited until dawn when the sunlight finally felt like it was strong enough to chase away the memory of him. Even now, months later, I can't stay alone in that house. Sometimes, late at night, when the wind howls and the rain rattles the windows, I swear I see a shadow at the edge of my vision, standing, watching, always waiting, and I know he hasn't left. The road that shouldn't exist. I've always loved driving at night. There's something hypnotic about empty highways, the hum of tires on asphalt, and the way headlights carve through darkness. I was 22, freshly out of college. and on a solo road trip through the Appalachians, craving isolation and adventure. I liked quiet, and late-night driving gave me that. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened that night. It started around 11:50 p.m. I had veered off the main highway onto a narrow, twisting mountain road I'd spotted on an old paper map I bought at a gas station. The GPS signal was patchy, flickering in and out, as if the road didn't fully exist in the digital world. At first, it felt exhilarating. Mist curled around the dense woods, soft, white tendrils drifting across the road. The air smelled like wet pine, and earth cold and sharp in my lungs. Cold and sharp in my lungs. I turned on the heater, trying to shake the creeping chill crawling up my spine. The road was barely wide enough for one car, bordered by thick trees that leaned inward, blocking the moonlight. After a few miles, I noticed something odd. The landmarks behind me seemed wrong. A bend in the road I had just passed looked like it had moved. The trees didn't match the map. I dismissed it tiredness, fog, paranoia, but unease began gnawing at me. Then I saw the car. A black sedan, parked in the shadows under a cluster of trees. No lights, no engine. I slowed instinctively, and that's when I realized the driver wasn't there, or at least there wasn't a visible face. Just a dark blur, like a human-shaped shadow. My pulse spiked. I glanced at the rear-view mirror. The fog made it impossible to see clearly, but the sedan seemed to move with me, though I hadn't seen it leave its place. Around 12:30 a.m., panic started to creep in. I tried to turn around, but the road curved back impossibly, leading me to the same spot over and over. The GPS didn't help. It kept flicking between lost signal, then, and vague shapes of roads that weren't there. I could feel the forest pressing closer, the branches scratching against the sides of the car like claws. Every turn made my stomach twist in fear. By 1:05 a.m., I began hearing it, faint whispering, low, almost imperceptible, seeming to come from every direction at once. I rolled up the windows, but it didn't help. The whispers weren't words I could understand, just sibilant, layered, human-sounding noises that made my skin crawl. I pulled over to the side, flashlight shaking in my hand, as I tried to make sense of what I was hearing. Then I saw them, figures emerging from the fog along the side of the road. First one, then another, then a whole line of silhouettes, pale in the dim light. Their movement was jerky, unnatural, like they weren't fully human, or maybe not human at all. They didn't speak or run. They just glided along the edge of the road, staring. Always staring. I could feel their attention, heavy and suffocating, though they made no sound. My heart hammered as I floored the car. Tires screeched on wet leaves and mud, the headlights cutting through the fog as best they could. But no matter how fast I drove, the road twisted back on itself. A bridge I knew should be ahead wasn't there. Instead, the asphalt ended abruptly, replaced by a dense wall of fog and trees. Around 1:45 a.m., the whispers returned louder now, layered, overlapping, almost right inside my head. Names, my name, repeated over and over, though distorted, echoing like hundreds of voices chanting it at once. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and for a split second I swear I saw the black sedan, the faceless driver, hovering behind me, moving impossibly fast through the fog. My chest tightened. Sweat poured down my face. I wanted to scream, but my voice stuck in my throat. Desperation set in. I swerved onto a narrow dirt path, hoping it would lead me back to a familiar road. The branches scratched and clawed at my car, leaving deep gouges in the paint. The fog pressed in so close I could barely see 2 feet ahead. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the path opened up to a faint light, a small gas station in the distance. My car lurched forward, tires skidding over mud. I didn't stop to breathe. I didn't even slow. I reached the pumps, trembling, chest heaving. I tried to tell the attendant what had happened, but he frowned, shaking his head. "Ridgecrest Road," he said slowly. "Nobody goes down there. That road doesn't exist anymore. Nobody goes down there. That road doesn't exist anymore. People get lost in the mountains if they wander that way at night." I spent hours trying to explain, but it felt pointless. He kept glancing nervously toward the dark mountains behind me. The shadows seemed too heavy, too deliberate. Even when I left the gas station and returned to the main highway, my stomach churned. Every bend in the road, every flicker of fog in the trees reminded me of those whispers, that faceless driver, those shadowy figures. Even now, months later, I drive during the day, avoiding mountain roads at night. But sometimes, when the sun has just set and the first mist rolls in, I swear I see a narrow black road appear through the fog, twisting impossibly between the trees. And sometimes, I hear whispers, my name drawn out, distorted, impossible to ignore. I never went back. I never will. But I can't shake the feeling that road is still there, waiting for someone else, twisting through the mountains, disappearing and reappearing like it's alive. And if you follow it, it will find you. Whispers from the Hollow. I grew up in a small town in southern West Virginia, surrounded by dense mountains and endless forests. As a teenager, my friends and I were obsessed with exploring abandoned places, old cabins, shuttered churches, and forgotten cemeteries hidden in the woods. There was one spot that everyone whispered about, but no one dared to visit. A small, secluded graveyard deep in the hills, the kind of place that felt like it belonged to another time entirely. It was late October, around 10:30 p.m., and the night was cold and still. The fog hung low, curling around the trees like ghostly fingers, and the moon peeked intermittently through thick clouds. My friends and I had parked our car on a narrow dirt track that led into the woods. Our flashlights barely penetrated the darkness, casting weak, trembling beams that made the shadows dance. The air smelled damp and earthy, tinged with the faint rot of decaying leaves. At first, the cemetery seemed harmless. Old stones, cracked and leaning, names barely legible under moss and dirt. The wind whispered through the trees, low and mournful. My friends were daring each other to walk further into the plot, and I laughed nervously, trying to mask the unease crawling up my spine. That's when I heard it. A soft, melodic hum, faint, coming from deeper within the graves. "Do you hear that?" I whispered, my voice tight in my chest. My friends froze, nodding. They whispered back that yes, something was moving, or at least making a sound. The hum wasn't musical. It was off, dissonant, layered with faint whispers that seemed to come from everywhere at once. My stomach churned. We followed the sound cautiously. The graves grew older, smaller, less maintained, some completely overgrown with weeds and brambles. That's when I noticed fresh soil, recently turned earth-forming mounds that didn't match the decayed stones around them. My throat tightened. The smell of rot grew stronger, like something had been buried there not long ago. My flashlight flickered. I cursed under my breath. The shadows in the clearing seemed thicker than the rest of the cemetery, almost liquid, moving with a life of their own. Then I saw him. Or her. An old man, or at least he looked old, hunched, pale skin stretched tight across his face, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. He stood beside one of the fresh graves, silent, pointing at it without a word. The hum grew louder, almost deafening in my ears. I felt the panic rise like bile in my throat. What are you doing here?" I managed to whisper. My friends were frozen, their flashlights trembling. The man didn't respond. He just kept pointing. I couldn't see his feet. It was like his body emerged from the shadows themselves. My heartbeat thundered so loud I was sure he could hear it. Then the ground shifted. I froze. The fresh soil in front of the old man began to move as if something was trying to push up from beneath. I stumbled back, tripping over roots, my flashlight clattering to the ground. I saw a hand, pale, skeletal, emerge from the dirt, followed by another. Whispers rose in the air, frantic, overlapping, unintelligible, yet somehow calling my name. My friends screamed, bolted for the car, leaving me behind. I scrambled after them, hands scraping against roots and stones, the fog thickening, almost solid around me. Every step felt like wading through a living, breathing entity. The whispers followed, echoing inside my skull, layering over themselves until it was impossible to tell where they came from. I could feel eyes on me, hundreds of them, unseen, pressing through the fog. When I finally reached the car, I didn't look back. We sped down the dirt track, tires sliding over mud, branches snapping against the sides. But the feeling didn't leave me. Something had followed. I could feel it like static crawling over my skin, invisible but real. The cemetery should have been behind us, but as we emerged onto the main road, I glimpsed it through the mist, the silhouette of the old man, standing at the edge of the forest, watching, motionless, still pointing. Even now, months later, I avoid those woods entirely. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind is just right and the fog rolls low across the hills, I swear I hear whispers calling my name. They're faint at first, teasing like the ghost of that cemetery reaching through time. And I know, deep down, that one day I'll hear the shoe hum again, and it will be closer, almost at my doorstep. I never went back. None of us did. But the memory stays. Sometimes I wake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, thinking I hear soil shifting outside my window. Faint, scratching at the walls. And I cannot shake the feeling that those graves are not empty, and that they never will be.